the very people who ascended to power on the back of a slogan. A slogan. They were running around just saying hustler. Nobody ever understood what hustler means. Those same people are saying we cannot do the very same and go on a slogan. One word. Say it yourself.
The political scene in Kenya has never been short of drama, but the words of ODM Secretary General EDWIN SIFUNA at the annual conference of lawyers hit differently. He did not mince his words as he tore into President William Ruto and at the same time challenged the old politics that have long shaped the country. His delivery was fiery, but what stood out was not just the criticism, it was the defiance, the energy, and the belief that Kenyans hold the final power in deciding their future.
You see, personally like SIFUNA, personally as SIFUNA, I had taken a public position on Gachagua way prior to the impeachment. Are you telling me you paid me to do something I already wanted to do?
Sifuna's speech carried a weight that went beyond politics. It touched on the frustrations of millions of ordinary Kenyans who feel betrayed by broken promises, rising corruption, and leadership that seems far removed from the struggles on the ground. When he painted Ruto as a leader whose government is neck-deep in corruption, it was not just rhetoric. It was a mirror reflecting the growing anger in households struggling with high cost of living, joblessness, and a government that appears disconnected.
That some of the people who are pointing fingers are the worst possible auctioneers in this country. In fact, their names are synonymous with corruption. If you ask a small child in this country what they know about that person, they tell you that is a thief. And then they are the ones standing and telling us, oh, Parliament is corrupt. All of those committees in Parliament, except two, all of those committees in Parliament are headed by members of his party, the President's party.
In the room filled with lawyers, there was laughter and cheer when he rallied them into shouting a phrase that has become common among citizens. One term. It was not just a joke, it was an emotional release, a reflection of what many whisper in markets, on matatus, and in village gatherings. The idea that Ruto should only serve one term has started to gain a life of its own, and Sifuna knew how to tap into it.
Honorable Kalonzo, we must be brave. We must be bold. Saving a nation, this is like an existential fight for this very soul of this country. Saving a nation is not an easy task. We must be bold. The very people who ascended to power on the back of a slogan. A slogan. They were running around just saying hustler. Nobody ever understood what hustler means. Those same people are saying we cannot do the very same and go on a slogan. One word. Say it yourself.
But his message was much bigger than Ruto. It was about the myth of invisibility that has surrounded sitting presidents for decades. Sifuna spoke of a political system that often makes it seem as though power cannot shift away from State House once someone sits there. He called this narrative null and void, reminding the country that voters remain the ultimate force. For a nation scared by electoral betrayals and backroom deals, these words pierced deep. They reminded Kenyans that no politician, no matter how powerful, can defy the will of the people forever.
I have heard some political leaders claim that, we are in Africa, and that in Africa it is very difficult to remove a sitting president who is looking for his second term. He forgets there are people like Lenaola who made history by annulling a presidential election.
His warning that he will not attend the joint meeting between ODM and UDA MPs at State House sent ripples through both camps. It was not just about rejecting Ruto, it was also about refusing to play into a script that seeks to blur the lines between government and opposition. By standing firm, Sifuna positioned himself as one of the few leaders willing to speak against the tide of political compromise that often silences voices of accountability.
Honorable Kalonzo, I am a believer in separation of powers. I have refused to go to the seat of the executive. And this is one of the criticisms I hope the CJ will share. One of my criticism of her is that sometimes she forgets that she is a head of an institution.
What makes his remarks even more striking is the timing. Kenya is still 3 years away from the next general election, but the political environment is already charged. Ruto's administration is facing mounting criticism over the economy, public debt, and corruption scandals that refuse to go away. On the other hand, Raila Odinga's own grip on opposition politics is being tested as questions grow on whether he has been too soft on the government in pursuit of broader international ambitions. Into his tense arena stepped SIFUNA, armed with words sharp enough to cut through the double talk of Kenyan politics.
Kenya is not like the rest of Africa. We are not the rest of Africa where these things happen. You understand? So, don't tell us about Uganda, sure. Are we Uganda? Are you saying that? With all due respect to my friends from Uganda, we are not Uganda. So, Justice Ndanaola and your team, for that courage to demonstrate that Kenya can be different. Kenya can be different. We don't have to be like the other African countries. We want to remind these people that on the day that Kenya...
His attack was a reminder that the political class cannot simply trade power among themselves while leaving the people behind. The message carried anger but also hope. Anger at leaders who campaign on promises of change only to become defenders of the very system they vowed to dismantle. Hope that Kenyans, when pushed to the wall, can rise and decide differently. The deeper meaning of SIFUNA's remarks lies in their challenge to both Ruto and Raila. To Ruto, it was a blunt warning that the presidency is not a shield against accountability. To Raila, it was a reminder that the people expect opposition, not compromise. The shockwaves were not just in State House corridors, they rippled across the country, stirring political debate and energizing voices that have long felt ignored.
Why? SIFUNA does not go to State House. And by the way, constitutionally, I am the supervisor of the executive. They come to me, I don't go to them.
The picture that emerges is of a Kenya standing on a crossroads. On one path is a government that continues to entrench itself in power, insulated by old narratives of deep state and untouchable authority. On the other path is a restless population, represented in part by voices like SIFUNA's, who insist that the 2027 election will not be decided by system or secrets, but by the raw and unfiltered will of the people.
On the day that Kenyans speak, all this bravado you see, Senior Counsel Vidu Mugai, the good thing with me, I have the benefit of being in the exact same position that the people are in power, who are in power now, are in. We were the ones making all those statements of bravado, deep state, and putting up brave faces saying, oh, tutakuja tufagie mosho moja.
Kenya's politics has always been about who controls the story. SIFUNA, in one speech, disrupted the story. He reminded the nation that power is temporary and that betrayal of the public trust carries consequences. He did not speak with fear, and the boldness has put him at the center of attention. Whether his words will inspire a new wave of resistance or drowned out by the noise of political maneuvering remains to be seen. But one thing is clear, his message has unsettled the two most powerful figures in the land, and for that alone, the country is now watching closely.
They are in the exact same position. We have been there, saying, oh, this is what the experience of what you taught me is that you, as the voters, are more powerful than these people actually by. You are more powerful. And never see that